For 3 evenings, the same thing happened. Just before sunset, a deer stepped into the clearing, and the moment the young fox saw him, she vanished into the ferns. He never followed. He never pushed closer to the edge of the undergrowth. He simply stood in the same part of the clearing for a while, then disappeared back among the trees. The next evening, he returned. So did she. Only she remained hidden. At first, that was all there was between them. A deer who kept coming back, and a fox who kept disappearing. But on the 4th evening, something changed. The fox waited 1 second longer before slipping into the ferns. It was barely anything. 1 second. The deer did not move toward her. He stayed where he always stayed, grazing for a while before leaving as the light began to fade. The next day, the fox was there before he arrived. She stood partly hidden behind the ferns, watching the gap between the trees where he usually appeared. When he finally stepped into the clearing, she did not disappear straight away. This time, she remained visible. Her body was still angled toward the vegetation, ready to retreat, but her paws stayed where they were. The deer stopped. For a long moment, neither animal moved toward the other. Then the fox turned and walked back into the ferns. She did not run. The following evening, the deer returned, and the fox came out a little farther. That became their pattern. He arrived near sunset and stopped in roughly the same place. She chose how much of herself to reveal. Some days, only her face appeared between the leaves. Other days, she stood completely visible at the edge of the clearing. The deer never closed the distance himself. If the space between them became smaller, it was because the fox had moved. At first, she remained close to the ferns. Then she began stepping into the open. One evening, she stopped several meters away. Another evening, she came closer. Eventually, only 4 steps separated them. The deer remained still. The fox watched him, then turned back. The next day, she stopped at 3. That small difference changed the shape of the clearing. 3 steps, close enough to see every movement clearly, close enough that either animal could have changed the moment simply by moving too fast. Neither did. For a while, they stayed exactly where they were. Then the fox returned to the ferns. The deer stayed until dusk. There were also evenings when she did not appear at all. He still came. He still stood in the clearing for a while. Then he left. No search, no attempt to find her, and no change in what happened the next evening. He returned. Days became weeks. The fox began spending more time in the open. She explored the clearing while the deer grazed at the far side. She stopped disappearing at every movement. Sometimes she sat at the edge of the grass and watched him. Sometimes she ignored him completely and turned her attention toward the trees. The distance between them changed slowly enough that no single day seemed important. Until one evening, it was. The deer entered the clearing at the usual time. The fox was already there. She stood near the edge of the grass, where she had stopped several times before. 4 steps would have been familiar. 3 would have been closer than usual. But this time, she did not stop there. She walked past the place where she normally hesitated, past 4 steps, Past 3. The deer lifted his head. The fox kept moving, slowly, without rushing, without breaking into a run. She crossed the remaining space and stopped beside him. For the first time, there was almost no distance between them at all. The deer did nothing. He did not lower his head toward her. He did not step closer. He simply remained where he was. After a while, the fox sat down. The deer went back to grazing. They remained that way until the light began to leave the clearing. Then the fox stood, walked back toward the ferns, and disappeared between them. The deer left soon after. The following evenings felt different. The fox no longer vanished when he arrived. Sometimes she stayed near him. Sometimes she kept several meters between them. Sometimes they occupied opposite sides of the clearing for most of the evening. But hiding was no longer the first thing she did. The deer still arrived in the same quiet way. He still stayed for a while. He still left before the forest became completely dark. And then, one evening, he did not come. The fox appeared at the usual time. She moved into the clearing and settled where she often sat. The light faded. The gap between the trees remained empty. Eventually, she returned to the ferns. The next evening, she arrived earlier. She crossed into the clearing and stopped facing the place where the deer normally appeared. Again, nothing came through the trees. On the third evening, the fox changed where she waited. Instead of sitting near the middle of the clearing, she walked all the way across it. She stopped at the exact edge where the deer usually entered. For a moment, she lowered her head toward the ground. Then she sat there. From that position, the clearing looked different. It was the place from which the deer had spent all those evenings watching a small fox decide whether to stay or disappear. Now the fox faced the trees, and waited. The next evening, she returned to the same spot. The deer did not. By then, the pattern that had shaped the clearing for weeks was gone. At first, the question had been whether the fox would ever remain when the deer appeared. Now there was a different question. Would he appear at all? The following evening, the fox arrived before sunset. She sat near the tree line, ears turning toward every sound coming from the woods. Leaves moved, branches shifted, birds crossed between the trunks. But the familiar shape did not appear. Not yet. Then, from deeper among the trees, came the soft sound of movement through dry leaves. The fox stood. A moment later, the deer stepped into view. He paused at the edge of the forest. The fox did not retreat. Weeks earlier, that single sight would have sent her straight into the ferns. Now she remained exactly where she was. For several seconds, neither moved. Then the deer began crossing the clearing. He stopped before reaching the middle. The positions were almost reversed. The fox stood near the place where he had always appeared. The deer stood closer to the side where she had once hidden. And this time, she was the one who moved first. She stepped away from the tree line. One step, then another. No rush, no sudden burst of movement. She simply walked across the clearing. The deer remained still. The fox kept coming. The same stretch of ground that had once taken days to cross now disappeared beneath a few quiet steps. She stopped beside him, not touching, not hiding, just close enough that the old distances no longer mattered. For a moment, the deer looked toward her. Then he lowered his head and began grazing. The fox sat down. Around them, the clearing carried on as if nothing unusual had happened. Leaves moved in the evening breeze. Birds settled into the branches. The light stretched long shadows across the grass. And the fox stayed. If this story stayed with you, tell us which moment you will remember most. Subscribe for the next story.